I think it's really easy when we're single to equate that to the fact that maybe we've done something wrong. Because oftentimes when you go to a wedding, you hear people use language like, the Lord is blessing me. The Lord is blessing me so much. And even now, as I have so many friends that are having babies and they post pictures and they talk about what a blessing from the Lord it is, I have to pause and think, will that ever be a blessing in my life? Will kids, will marriage be a blessing? And again, I think we have to take stock of our theology. What things are we focusing in on? Because Scripture says it will give us the desires of our heart, that we are to make our requests known to God. But it also talks about a lot of suffering. It also talks about a lot of waiting. And there were so many people in Hebrews 11, I think it is, that were people of faith who died in faith, meaning they didn't see the things that they were promised come to fruition. And sometimes I just have to stop and think, am I a part of something that God is doing? If He's real, am I a part of something that's bigger than my blip of a life? But if my blip of a life matters in the way that the other people in Hebrews 11 mattered, then will I be faithful? Somehow, our theology in the church is that when we see other people being blessed and we're not being blessed in that area, then it either, our theology crumbles because we think it's a rewards-based system, or we become embittered, or we think maybe we're living in sin and that God's punishing us. It's not necessarily any of those things. We just all have different journeys. And Scripture talks about rejoicing with those who rejoice and mourning with those who mourn. And so I think it is a blessing when someone has a baby, and it is a blessing when someone gets married. But there's also free will. People have choices. That person who got married, who walked down the aisle and it was a blessing, that doesn't mean that their spouse isn't going to leave them someday. So then were they disobedient to God? Did God not really bless them? We have to pause and think about these kind of fallible theology statements that we're making. And what I always have to come back to is, do I believe that God is real? Do I believe that He's good? And if I believe both of those things, will I be obedient in the space of what I don't know? And some of us, I think, are waiting and just think that life won't start until we get married. And I think we're then making an idol of marriage. And when and if marriage does happen for us, it's going to crumble because we've made it this thing that's going to catapult our life. But then some of us, marriage isn't happening, so we're over here going, I don't want my theology to crumble. So you know what? God has given me the gift of singleness, and I don't need a spouse, and I'm just going to do all these great things. And my work is what, that's my marriage. I don't know if people actually say that, but we make an idol of singleness. So in both spheres, we can make an idol when we're worshiping anything that isn't God. So that's what I think about that.